not sitting in a checking account.
It's actively managed by the trust department at Woodlands Bank.
Mutual funds.
It's various mutual funds, they're investing it all.
Okay.
So, and that was through a procurement process that the board went through and selected Woodlands based on their proposal.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate an update on it, see
Yep.
where we stand on it.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Next will be approval of the bills from October, November, and December. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
A second.
Any questions or concerns?
To the board, just so you know, it's unusual, especially the new board members, for us to do 3 months at a time. We typically do 1 month. So, February, the second meeting of February, you will only see January's bills on the agenda. It's based on how the board calendar worked out, that we end up with 3 months in this agenda. Going down through there's nothing really unusual in October. To note, our typical disbursements over a month, including payroll, is about $2.5 million. It varies month to month. In November, overall, there's nothing unusual. I do want to note that the capital reserve payment you note there, it's about $20,000. That was for the boiler repair at JSASD that was board approved back in June. That project has been completed and fully paid. In December, the bills are higher than normal. The biggest thing from December that brought that up, we send the district's contribution to the retirement plan is paid every quarter at the end of the quarter. So we had a quarterly payment to Peasers in December of just over $1.3 million, which is the primary reason why December is higher than the other months. Also in December was a 3-pay month. So payroll's a little bit higher than normal, plus all the remittances for payroll. There's a third remittance for taxes and so forth. We also did our special ed contract is paid in installments. I believe it's 6 installments over the year. That was paid in December. That was just over $132,000. So those couple of items is what drove December higher than normal. Oh, sorry, I did want to point out the capital reserve payment in December was $47,545.65. That was the last payment for the Salisbury roof repair. That project was paid in full.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Next will be communications. Dr. Ulmer.
I don't have anything under communications.
I don't have anything under the president's report, other than we had an executive session prior to the meeting for personnel and safety. Moving on to the intermediate report, Jesse.
The IU is looking for hosts to participate in a event they're having in May. It's called the Remake Learning Days. It's May 2nd to the 22nd, and it's for not just students, but it's for parents and caregivers and What it is to learn alongside their kids at events hosted by local community partners. These partners include librarians, parks, schools, tech center, museums, after-school centers, nonprofit, maker spaces, and more. If anybody would like to learn any more, you can call the IU and ask for Rebecca Gibney, and she can give you more information. If you have something that you would like to present and host, then you have time to sign up yet. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Student representative report? Okay. Superintendent's report.
I'm going to start by turning over the floor to Mr. Enders to talk about the binder that's in front of you.
So the budget binder has been handed out to you this evening. I will tell you, we are going to try something a little different than we've done in the past. What we did is we put in here the documents that will be presented at the next meeting. So it's the 3 elementary buildings budgets are in here. What we're gonna start doing this year, we're gonna try is every meeting, you're going to get the next meeting's presentations. So tonight, you're getting the presentations that will happen the first meeting of February. The first meeting of February, you'll get the sections that are going to be presented the second meeting of February, and so forth and so on throughout the rest of the month. So you can review them. We're not going to discuss them this evening, but there will be the ones that Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Jean will be presenting at the next meeting. That's all.
While I'm going to recognize Mr. Armbruster and Mr. Bittner and ask them to come forward to talk about high school pathways, while they're getting set up, I do have policies on the agenda. Policy 103 and 104, the only changes in there are in the policy, we are required to post who the people are to contact. And since staff has changed, the policy 103 and 104 is the contact name changes. Policy 202, 217, and 810 contain PSBA language edits based on school code. Those are all red lines so you can see what has changed. Those are not on there tonight for vote. They are on there tonight for presentation. So if you see anything between now and the next meeting you have questions on, please let me know. They're all attached. We will vote on them at the next meeting unless somebody jumps out and says, hey, this is wrong, something needs to be fixed. Otherwise, they'll get on the next meeting for a vote. Questions about any of those? Okay, Mr. Armbruster.
Thank you. All right, good evening, board. Sort of similar to the budget process, Mr. Bittner and I got together and want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as far as what's to come from the high school. Believe it or not, we already have to start talking about next school year. And so at the next board meeting, our course catalog is going to come up for a vote, as well as some of the new course offerings that the high school is hoping to propose. So with many new faces on the board and with Mr. Bittner and I both being new to the high school, we thought it might be helpful to go through this so that you all see what's coming and answer any potential questions. So this year we had 3 building goals that we've been working towards throughout the school year, and tonight's conversation is really primarily revolving around goal number 3, where we challenged our department heads and our teachers to work through our PD time and our faculty meeting time to look at our course offerings, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and that we're also meeting the high priority occupations when we discuss like our CTE program and that moving forward. This slide is our pathway process that we have. So you have all this in front of you, and this is in the handbook now. But for those of you that are new, this sort of familiarizes you with how the high school is set up. Starting in 10th grade, students will choose a pathway, and then there are courses that they work through within that pathway. Ultimately, we have our graduation requirements, which are the 27 credits But the state of Pennsylvania also requires students to meet the graduation competencies, which you can see here. That graphic is, it's kind of small to see, so I put some bullets up there for you in case you're not familiar. But the easiest path to graduation for our students is to demonstrate proficiency on the Keystone exams. And as of last year, with the 22-23 graduating class, the waivers or the exemptions through COVID are no longer offered. So this is something that we have to pay more attention to moving forward. We still have roughly 35 students that took the Keystone in 8th grade that are seniors this year, so they still qualify for that exemption. But otherwise, the Keystone proficiency, Keystone competency is something that we have to pay close attention to moving forward. If students do not pass the Keystones, there are some other options, but those options are a little bit more difficult. And so we are working hard to make sure that we have checks and balances in place, make sure we're identifying students early so that if they're not demonstrating that proficiency, we make sure there are no surprises come their senior year. In case you are not aware, this is the Act 13 report from the state of Pennsylvania. And what I did was I pulled some of the local schools, schools that are similar in size to us, schools that are close in proximity to us, schools that we compete against in the PHAC, just so you can see where Jersey Shore is compared to the rest of the schools in the region. In this report, I know that link is really tiny at the top, but that is available through the PDE website. You can look at every school district, every school building in the state of Pennsylvania. And so the orange bar that you'll see towards the bottom, that is where Jersey Shore High School sits right now compared to the schools locally. And as you can see, we have some work to do, but the big part here that I want to point to is a lot of this is related to our Keystone scores. So at Jersey Shore, because of the COVID waiver, we have not had students retest over the last several years. They took the test once, and whatever they got, they got. But we are looking at remedying that because it is the easiest path to graduation. And so that's something that I want to talk about as we move forward. The other piece of this, obviously, is the graduation rate. So at the high school level, the graduation rate counts as part of your building score. At the middle school level, you'll see that it's highlighted in yellow. I included them because 8th graders taking the Keystone go towards the high school scores. But at the middle level, because they don't have a graduation rate, the attendance rate counts twice. And so through this, I've reached out to some of these local schools and I've talked to them like, hey, what are you guys doing? What are the Williamsports and the Loyal Sox doing so that their growth rates are so high? What is Lewisburg and Central Columbia doing that their proficiency is so high? And we've talked to some of the other schools, like what are you doing that's helping your graduation rate get to where it needs to be? And all of those conversations have led to what we'll present moving forward. But there's no question that I think we should be higher, we should be performing better, and I think we can if we shift some of our efforts moving forward. So one of those components is the state of Pennsylvania provides a graduation tracking toolkit that we were not utilizing prior to this school year. It is a relatively new kit, but we've worked with Mr. Crate, we've worked with the office down here, and our counselors now all have access to this as well as myself. And what we can do is we can take the student data, upload it directly from Focus, and it gives us a snapshot that you see on the right. So that is our current 8th grade class, the class of 2027. And because there are kids that are in algebra right now that are projected to pass the Keystone, you can see that there are 22%, or roughly almost a fourth of the current 8th grade is expected to meet that graduation pathway. Now, that's because they're taking it in 8th grade. Next year, as 9th graders, when they take it, we would expect that those numbers are going to go up. But in order to help them with that, there's some systemic changes that we want to make sure you guys are aware of as we head into getting our course catalog to you next week. It's important that we get that approved so we can start the scheduling process. And so some things that we're looking to emphasize with the scheduling process at the high school, there's a definite need for some additional supports for our 9th graders. As someone who's come up from the middle school and is now at the high school, I can see that, and I think the students would benefit from some of these supports. So any student that's currently taking Math 8 at the middle level, so those are not the algebra students, we want to help them by giving them a study hall in the first semester of their ninth grade year, because it's a big jump going from 5 classes to potentially 8 classes. And they're all excited for all the courses that we offer, but we see a need for some of those systemic supports. Similar to what they have with PLT and Come Alive at the middle level, we're hoping that this will help us at the high school level. We're looking at some of the MTSS data at the middle level to make sure those students that are identified as needing those supports at middle school will be placed in some strategic homerooms. We've had 4 teachers that have spoken up and said, hey, we want to help guide these students so that when they're in shore period, they're with these teachers. These are also teachers that are working in their after-school program right now at the high school, and so they want to help with this. Now, the other piece to this that is pretty important for ninth grade is currently at the high school, we have career algebra, we have career 1, career 2, career 3. That is not a course that is recognized by the NCAA, and so there are times where students go through that track, and then by the time they're a senior, they might have an opportunity, maybe because of sports, that now they are looking to get into college. And so we want to look at shifting that focus a little bit to help those students, but also look at that course as an opportunity to, again, reinvest in some of these ninth grade students that we know need support. So the proposal that you'll see shortly from the math department is take some of these ninth graders that our PVOS data shows that they need a lot of extra support, and give them a double block through math in ninth grade. So instead of taking career 1 in ninth grade and career 2 in 10th grade, they can get exposed to that content throughout the full year with co-taught classes that will help them master the algebra content and get 2 math credits as ninth graders, which opens up opportunities for them later through like CTE and other opportunities. We plan to continue the student supports that we've offered so far this year. The after-school program averages about 16 kids a night when we host it. We've got 6 staff that are supporting it each evening, and that's been a really, really impactful intervention. We're starting to look at working lunches for the second semester as an opportunity for students that need some extra support. They can go and meet with some adults that we have set aside. Believe it or not, biggest difference from the middle school to the high school is you go in the cafeteria and kids have their books out and they're doing work, and it's wonderful. But we want to give them a better space than in the middle of a noisy cafeteria, and so I think it will be very beneficial. And then we're going to continue to leverage short period and utilize that as an opportunity to get students some extra supports. So it's a little bit of the backstory going into now each department and what they would like to do moving forward, and what you'll see in the Pathways Guide at the next meeting. So the math department is not proposing any new courses, but they are looking to bring back some things that they know worked and worked well prior to the COVID exemptions that we've had. And so the first thing I just talked about is that double block for students that are in career 1 and career 2. They're looking at about 40 students that we know need a lot of support. So this intensive intervention will provide them with a co-taught class. It'll provide them with a double period throughout the course of the year. And they can really work on some of those targeted MTSS interventions that we know they're getting exposed to at the middle level, and we want to carry them through to the high school. And this is something that I believe will help. It's something that we hope to include in our TSI report, which is the high school has been identified as a school in need of improvement. And so this is one of the things that we believe will help. And so the other piece to this is these are students that, if we look at our data over the last several years, they have not graduated. There's sometimes students that are 16, 17 still in freshman courses. We want to help that group of students get the credits that they need so that they can have some of the more opportunities that we have, because they get locked into having to retake this course, these career 1, career 2 courses, and it's really limiting their opportunities moving forward. So we think this will help. Keystone remediation was approved before, and the idea behind this is if a student has not earned proficiency on the Keystone exam, they have the opportunity to take this remediation course, and we can really target those students that are close and get them up to the 1500 mark so that they can graduate through either the Keystone proficiency or the Keystone composite pathway. And then the last course that you'll see that was approved quite a while ago, the Intro to Statistics course. We have a Math 123 course and a Math 125 course that's connected through a dual enrollment opportunity. we were told that the Math 125 course is no longer going to be offered, and so the math department is looking to add this, so that way the students can still get that extra half credit. So Math 123 will still happen, and then after that, those students will then take Intro to Statistics, so that they can get their full credit and be on track to graduate. So there is a flow chart that the math department provided that will hopefully help you see like what the typical path is for students and what they're looking to do in order to help our students earn their 4 credits. And I know this is a lot of information. That's why we're coming up here tonight, because this course guide will come before you tomorrow or next board meeting. And if there are questions, hopefully within the 2 weeks, we can get stuff to you so that you can review prior to that meeting. Similarly to math, science is also looking at this and say, hey, we've got to address the Keystone exams, the fact that those exemptions are no longer here. So they wanted to bring back their Keystone biology course, which was offered as a half credit. And again, the idea behind that is we get the students that were really close to being proficient, we help remediate that skill, and we get them to at least a proficient score, which will help their overall chances at meeting the graduation requirements set aside by the state. And again, Keystones is the biggest influencer in our building score, which will help us move up in comparison to those other scores. And environmental science is a new course, and the idea here is that essentially it will replace Intro to Biology. With the new science standards that have come out, there is a larger emphasis on environmental literacy, and so they are looking to offer this course as opposed to the Intro Biology course as part of their plan to meet those new standards. And so here's a flow chart for those of you that are new. This is what the course selections will look like for next year. You can see what students would typically take, and then some of the elective options that the science department has for our students at the high school. English is only slightly different than math and science. Again, this is a tested subject, but the English course that they are looking to offer, which was approved in 2019 as well, they want to bring back the Keystone English, and again, it's the same concept that students that were close to proficiency but didn't quite get there. The difference here is that this is a year-long course. It's not semester-based, so math and science, they're going to look to remediate and then take the winter Keystones. Keystone English course that they ran prior, it ran all year, and so there's more of an emphasis on the Keystone exam, but those students that are proficient or advanced, they can take the typical English 10 course. Social Studies is actually proposing 2 new courses. The first, they're looking at, again, adding some elective options that students have expressed an interest in. So when they surveyed the students, there was quite a bit of interest in ancient medieval history. We had a lot of U.S. history, but there were some students that were looking at this option. So they are posing that as an elective option for students. And they're also posing an opportunity for AP Seminar, which is sort of a universal course. It's not necessarily specific to social studies, but our social studies teacher will be the one that obtains the certification to offer this. And so that is a new course that will be available on the course guideline that you get next week. Here is a flow chart for what social studies is right now. The other thing we asked the departments to do is look ahead, not only for next year, but a 5-year plan. And so with the AP Seminar course, there's also an AP Research component that could potentially be an avenue that we would go in the future. They're linked together. So that gives our students more of an opportunity to earn some college credits. A lot of times we have students that by the time they're a senior, they've got their credits, and so this is something they can do to advance themselves and really set themselves up for the next step in attending college. The physical education department is proposing new courses, but these courses are currently operating as standalone units within the PE classroom. So typically what happens is students have a choice between activities, and these are some activities that students have shown high interest in, And so the department is hoping that they could add some more electives, especially for our 11th and 12th graders, where they could really focus in on these concepts specifically. So, like I said, nutrition is normally like a six cycle. So they go through it in about 6 sessions of PE. They're looking to make that a full course. Same with strength conditioning and lifelong fitness. We've got a lot of students that want to access that fitness center. We have a great fitness center. And so they're hoping that they could offer a full course offering in that avenue. Our art, music, and modern language are not necessarily proposing anything new. There is a name change that you'll see with art because what they're seeing is that students have a desire to advance and go deeper with some technical skills, and they felt as though the title was sort of misleading before when it was called just art and design. So they're hoping that by changing it to advanced art, students will sort of see that this is not a beginner course. This is something where you can really expand your skills much further. They are hoping within their 5-year plan to offer a 2-dimensional art elective in the future. That would be more of a basic intro level type course for some students. Modern language does not have any additions, but I wanted to include them because they've had conversations as well. But with their department size being what it is, they're feeling like they need to stay right where they're at. And in music, the only addition to the course catalog will be they're hoping to add keyboarding too, because we have a keyboard 1 course that students take, and they'd like the option to continue that pathway. It's actually full right now, but because of the way that it's coded, they can't take that course twice and have it count for them. So if there was a keyboard 2 option, those students could continue on with those skills and some of that exposure. So at this point, this is what you will see in the course catalog coming from the high school departments. And I think I should take some questions before I turn it over to Mr. Bittner.
I have a question, and it's not really a question, more of a curiosity. I graduated a while ago, but I have looked at the course catalog recently, within the last couple years, and I'm really curious as to how many students are participating in some of these electives. I feel like we do offer quite a few electives, not necessarily a bad thing, but I want to make sure that we're keeping courses that are actually being utilized, and utilizing our teachers appropriately as well, so that we can add courses that, like if they want medieval history or whatever, that we can provide that for them. So is there a way that we could see maybe some numbers on some of these electives?
Some of these projections or some of the current electives?
Some of the current electives.
Yeah, we can definitely get those numbers. I know this year, if there was ever a course that they didn't have at least 5 students, it's in the catalog, but we didn't offer it because we didn't have any students that were taking it. So that does happen at times, but we can certainly pull the requests and get you numbers as to who's taking current courses or who's at least requesting current courses.
Is there a time when, like over 3 years, that nobody takes that course at all, that we then look to eliminate it, or?
So I will say that's happening with modern language right now. Like you'll see when the catalog comes out, we haven't had students take Honors Spanish 3 for quite a long time, so they're looking to remove that. So that is part of our goal with goal number 3 when we have our faculty meetings, and then there's a PLC time after that. That group has been looking at and auditing the catalogs to make sure that they are current, that they are up to date, and that if there are courses that students are not utilizing, that's where some of these new options are coming from.
And one of the things that I saw as we worked through this process and talked through it is there were courses that maybe the board had approved as, and you saw that tonight, maybe were approved as courses in the past, so the board got a full, like they were in the catalog, they had a description, the board said, yeah, go ahead and offer that course. When we weren't offering it and didn't need it, we took it out of the catalog. But they are board approved courses, so we can put them back in the catalog and you can authorize us to move forward at the next meeting. Doesn't mean we have to go back and rewrite an entire course. So it's better, like he's saying, is, oh, we don't need that right now, we're gonna take it out of the catalog, but we're not gonna we're not gonna vote to end a course or get rid of it if we may need it later. But what our practice has been is put it back in so you see it and not just turn it back on.
Can you explain the difference between Keystone Biology and environmental science? Like the,
Sure. So the Keystone Biology course would be the remediation course. So students take the Keystone exam. They score basic. Those students that are close to being proficient would get recommended to take the Keystone Biology course. It's a half-credit course. Then they take the winter Keystones with the idea of we're going to show growth and hopefully get those kids to proficiency. And the data that the department shared before, like the last several times they ran this, it was like 18 or 19 out of the 20 kids that took the course were then successful on the Keystones.
okay, so that is
So
for
that's
basically testing.
That is a separate course from, so
so they-
everybody would take Intro to Environmental.
Right.
Keystone Biology would be for those students that didn't pass biology, but were close. They're right there on the bubble, and we want to get them there.
Okay, so
And
that's
that was
actually,
approved prior.
right, so that's, that's to go towards Keystone testing? Okay. All right, thank you.
Your new phys ed, are they in addition to their phys ed now that they have, or is it a replacement, or it could be a
They
replacement?
would be elective options.
So
for
it's
the-
above and beyond
so
what they-
yes,
okay.
it's above and beyond. And we have, especially with our juniors and seniors, sometimes they have
Right,
their
I
credits.
understand that.
They look to take some extra PE, so these are something that the department said, this will benefit you long-term. Taking this nutrition course, doing the strength and conditioning and life fitness, they're hoping that will be more appealing to some of our juniors and seniors than sitting through a second or third PE class in 2 years.
Could you explain a little more of the algebra double block? Is that gonna be taught out of one book? And what are they gonna do the second period of the
Yep.
double?
So.
Gonna be a different book, or?
So the idea is that this will be focused on the algebra standards that are required. And the way the career course is set up currently is they take those algebra standards and they spread it out over the course of 2 years. The idea here would be rather than spread it out over the course of 2 years, you spread it out over the course of 1 year, but you have a double period. And so the hope that they're seeing,
Yeah, see, it says right here.
It'd be like taking algebra 1 to algebra 2. Algebra 1 might be the double block for the whole, I'm gonna say 9 weeks, whatever the course is, first semester. Then algebra 2 would be the
yeah,
second
the second
semester,
semester, they're
basically.
gonna move closer to those. But it's.
All right.
It's algebra 1, like right now the way it's run, they take algebra 1 and they split it over the course of 2 years. What we're hoping is that we can catch some of these students a little bit earlier and help them develop that proficiency. So, because as of right now, you do career 1 as a 9th grader, career 2 as a 10th grader, career 3 as a junior. When they take that keystone at that point, they're gonna be seniors by the time we get the results. And so this will hopefully help them meet those graduation proficiencies, and if they're not gonna make the keystone, then we have time to make sure that they can pass by being a CTE completer or by getting them through one of those alternate pathways. And again, this is all in response to the fact that the COVID waivers are no longer a thing, and so we have to make sure that we're being proactive as opposed to being reactive.
All right, so I have a question. So this Math 123, is that statistics or is that something different?
So it is a different course, and I'll have to get back to you on the specifics of it, but it's one of the dual enrollment courses that we offer. And the university dropped the second piece, and so what the department said is, since you don't have that second course, it's possible that a kid would only have 3.5 credits. So they're looking to bring in this statistics course. Because these are typically college-bound students, this intro course will help them, and it will also get them that extra half credit so that they get to their 4.
Was there any discussion about doing like an intro to trigonometry or any of that with this instead of statistics?
There was not discussion specific to this, but there are courses like that that students could take otherwise as part of their pathway. But this was
Are
looking
they on
at,
here?
if you look at the flow chart, I'm gonna go back if I can without messing it up. The unified course addresses some of that. Or is tiny for me as well. But yeah, that unified course is a course that they currently do. And there are elective options that exist as well that help students with that prep.
But is that a specific class, or is it just added in with something else?
Is trig a specific
Yeah.
class? I'd have to double check the catalog. I don't have that on this flow chart right here. But I will get with Mr. Fox and we can get specifics as to where that comes in the course timeline.
I was just wondering if there was other options besides statistics, if they could go in that direction.
Yeah, I do believe so. The challenge is with the scheduling as to like, is this, to your question, is this course, does it have enough seats in it at the time that they would need that half credit? And so the math department, actually, Ms. Person specifically said, well, here's a course that I could offer, I've taught it in the past, so that those students have something to fill that gap if they're not interested in what other electives exist.
All right, well, I was just curious because of the CTE program that has the machining end of things, they use trig in that a lot. So that's why I was asking if there was any options for that throughout their course here, or their career.
Yeah, I would double check and I'll get that for you.
All right.
I said, I'm still, this is my first time through this process, so
All right, thanks.
I'm still trying to digest it all. All right, Mr. Bittner, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Good evening. Thanks for the time on the agenda this evening. I brought to you a summary of action items that are coming to you as recommendations from two groups of adults that met previously. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the list of the 11 CTE programs that we currently have. And I kept that there for reference as these changes come to you for recommendation. Tonight, just discussion, generate questions, and me distributing information, and then you'll vote on these when you approve the course catalog. And so the first change, if you will, is in our business education programs. And this recommendation actually came from the business teachers, as well as the occupational advisory committee that oversees the business programs, and the local advisory committee that oversees all of our CTE programs. Essentially what was going on is we currently have an administrative assisting program. And the code for that you'll see behind it, those numbers are important for the Department of Education purposes, but there have not been any students enrolled in administrative assisting for the past 3 years. It has a low level of interest. It's not necessarily a highly paid, highly demanded occupation. And our goal with our CTE programs is to get students in high paid, high demanded occupations that fulfill the needs of the workforce. So the committee, the OAC, the LAC, and the instructors are recommending to substitute a new entrepreneurship program for the administrative assistant program. So essentially we're supplanting. One program will close in favor of another opening. Okay? Let me know if there's questions about that specifically, because I'm gonna move on next to our work-based learning programs. We wanna bring in the terminology work-based learning. And what we will continue to do is we have a cooperative education program. Ms. Dolly Oden is the coordinator of that. CTE students will still be able to have a capstone co-op placement their senior year. They'll be able to go out into an internship, a series of job shadows, or some type of apprenticeship. But what we would like to do is we'd like to meet the needs of all the students at Jersey Shore High School. Perhaps there's a CTE program that we don't have, like criminal justice, but they want to pursue study in that. Their senior year, we're proposing adding a CTE program called Diversified Occupations. What this will allow is a student who wants to become a teacher. We don't have an education CTE program. They can go into the Diversified Occupations program, and they will take a series of courses, and then they'll be set up on a series of internships to help them become a teacher, to help them go into criminal justice, or perhaps go into agriculture, another CTE program we don't currently have. There's no added costs to adding the entrepreneurship program. There's no added costs other than doubling the travel stipend for our co-op coordinator, which will be a cost of $1,500. That's the only cost in making this recommended change to the work-based learning programs. And when we get to our budget presentations, I think we're in March. Yes, I'll show you, that's already built into the budget proposal for this upcoming year. The third proposal and recommendation you'll see on your screen is also a substitution, just like the business education programs. The Occupational Advisory Committee, the LAC, and the industry is telling us we needed a more purposeful and directed and strategic manufacturing program. The previous program, and the one we currently have is precision production, is very broad. We struggled to find an instructor that was capable of teaching all the skills that we were asking students to learn in that program. We found an instructor, they specialize specifically in machining. The industry is telling us we have a high demand for machining. So what we want to do is we want to substitute a new program, machine tool technology, for the current precision production program, for the purposes of making it more intensive, more streamlined, and meeting the industry demand. There's no cost to this, and I actually was able to reduce the budget by $5,500 because we're laser focused on what we're teaching, and we don't have a lot of equipment and supplies sitting around that we're not actually using. Any questions on these first three proposed changes?
In that one that you just talked about, any problem with teacher certification there?
Not if we switch the program.
Okay.
If we stay with the current program, which is Precision Production 48.9999, we might have a certification issue because the certification and skill set required is so broad that we might be trying to get our new instructor 2 or 3 different teaching certificates to be able to keep that program open. Whereas if we substitute machine tool technology, he is currently enrolled in the Penn State classes. He is currently pursuing his certification for precision machining.
So basically, in that area, what would be the change?
Great question. We're actually not removing anything from the curriculum. This is a really good question. We're going to take the plastics and the polymers, and we're going to push that down into the 10th grade introductory class. We're going to keep the welding and the hot metalworking skills. We're just going to add them into the machining tasks that are in machines tool technology to make sure that our students are getting those additional welding and metalworking skills in addition to machining. And we currently do have the equipment and supplies to make that happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on these 3 recommendations? Okay, I'll move to the next slide. Again, on the right is for reference the programs we currently have. So the next recommendation involves our construction-based programs. We currently have 2 construction-based CTE programs. We have a construction trades program, that's the .9999 code, and then we have a property maintenance program. These programs overlap by approximately 80 to 85%, meaning we're duplicating. We're teaching the same thing in 2 separate shops with 2 separate instructors with 2 separate budgets and 2 separate programs. And that's great because we have the potential to be graduating up to 30 students a year in the construction-based trades. The problem is the data show only about 2 to 5 students from each of those programs is actually graduating and going into a construction-based job. Many of the students are going into fields outside of construction, they're going into the military, or they're going to post-secondary education, not in a construction-related field. So it's the recommendation of the LAC and myself, the CTE director, that we combine those 2 programs. The program code we want to keep, according to the Department of Education, is Building Property Maintenance, 460401. That is an official program of study. It's supported by the Department of Education, and it currently comes with up to 16 articulated credits to 9 post-secondary institutions across the state. Construction trades is not an approved program of study. There's no articulated credits available. We would have to do all that work locally, and we currently have been. Why are we proposing this change? Number 1, we're already meeting the needs of the local construction industry. We're graduating 4 to 10 students a year in both programs. Programs have a capacity of 16. If we focus on program quality, let's graduate a higher number of students and place them into jobs from one construction program, and then let's open a health science-based program. We currently don't offer any CTE programs for students interested in studying health science. We just currently have a series of electives that they can take. There's 3 electives right now. According to the data, the number 1 application area to Penn College from Jersey Shore students is health science. More students apply to Penn College to go for health science from Jersey Shore than any other subject area, yet we don't have a program to support them. Okay. By 2026, it's predicted that Pennsylvania will have the number 1 shortage in the nation of medical assistance professionals. Geisinger is presenting this to all of their hospitals in their professional development. They are dire, they are in need. And this recommendation actually comes from a committee that we formed that already has representatives on it from Geisinger, Jersey Shore, who has offered to provide professional support. They've even offered to provide beds for our new classroom, should this be approved. So what we're essentially asking for and recommending is that we transfer the instructor position, the instructional space, and the program budget from construction trades, transfer that and open up a new health and medical assisting program. The last recommendation is for our computer science-based programs. It's no programmatic changes. It essentially is just they are proposing one new course in 10th grade. It's an introduction to computer networking course. Okay. Any questions on this slide?
I have one. What would the additional cost be? You said you're gonna transfer the maintenance into the health-based programs? I'm sure the costs have gotta be a little bit higher for the health-based programs than what they would be for the maintenance, or not? They're gonna be pretty much the same, or?
For the instructor, it depends on who is hired and what salary they're placed at when they're hired. But essentially, I'm not asking you for a new position. I'm asking for a position transfer.
You're not asking for a new position?
No. Nope. And that's the difference from when health and medical assisting was proposed to this board a few years ago, and it was voted down. At that time, they were asking for a new position. They were asking for an increased budget. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking to redirect what we're currently investing into construction-based programs. My recommendation is that we're over-investing in construction areas. I want to reinvest, and I'm asking for a reinvestment of that instructor position, the instructional space, and the budget to open up health and medical assisting.
You would have you have a curriculum already made out that would follow that health?
So I have two recommendations for curricula, but I want to wait and consult with the instructor that we hire to see which of the ones that they recommend. All the CTE programs come with a task list from the Department of Education. There's 135 tasks that have to be taught in health and medical assisting. We don't get that choice. What we do get to choose is the textbook or the curriculum, if you will, of how we teach those tasks. I have two in mind right now. They're both built into the budget that we'll propose, but both of them have to match up and line up to the PDE approved task list.
Now, is this already approved, or you have to go through state process?
Great question. It has been recommended by the OACs and the LACs to come to the board, because those committees don't have the power to act. They're bringing these recommendations to you. We need board approval before we can get state approval. That's a great question.
So, in time frame for that?
Okay.
I mean, do you see that you can do it in this course of this year, or does it take longer than that?
So we will have to apply for approval based on your recommendations. We'll apply for approval to the state by May 31st. And then we can move forward with hiring an instructor, converting instructional spaces, hoping to open these programs in August.
That's a pretty fast turnaround.
So I have a question on, what's your prediction for enrollment in this program?
In health and medical assisting?
Yeah.
So we currently have 2 health science-based courses at the high school taught by Patty Hess. Both of them are full. Both courses have 20 to 22 students enrolled in them. Now, that's a mix of students in grades 10 through 12. The new instructor, the health science-based program will follow the instructional model of all of our other programs. There'll be a 9th grade exploratory course for a marking period. There'll be an introductory level course in 10th grade for 1 semester. And then the students can study full-time 3 credits a day in both of grades 11 and grades 12. In the first year of the program, we would only teach the 11th graders. You won't start seniors in the second year of a 2-year program. And we would cap the enrollment at 16 students. So knowing that there's potentially 20 to 30 students currently in the health courses, Patty has pretty much said, we have the interest to start these programs. In fact, the students want to know, why don't we already have this? They have parents, they have siblings that went through Jersey Shore and went to study health occupations and wish we had this program.
What's the certification you need there for that one?
That's great. So I will share with you a resource folder. Dr. Romer already has it. The CSBG, which is the document that indicates the certifications, the medical certifications they need, is in that resource folder.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My concern with the construction is, I know you're combining 2 things, and you say they don't all go out into the trade. Sometimes I feel some of those kids that are in those are in school because of those programs, and I'm concerned, my concern, this is a personal concern, that you're taking that opportunity from some of those. So we have to, because those kids are not going into the health field, for the most part. Just a comment.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I look at how many students have chosen health as their primary pathway, even coming out of 7th and 8th grade. It's sometimes 20 to 30% of the students in a class. And we currently only offer 3 courses for them to take. Yet I feel like we're offering a lot of courses for students interested in construction. I don't see that interest from our students. In terms of career data, construction-based occupations are still highly demanded, but they're falling lower in demand. Manufacturing is number 2, healthcare is number 1, time and time again. And the building goals that Justin showed you back at the beginning of the meeting, if you look at goal number 3, we specifically cite the Central Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board's high priority occupations. In every sector, whether it's number of position openings, whether it's number of educational programs available with openings, or whether it's the number of jobs posted, healthcare is number 1, hands down. And so our mission and our goal is to make sure that our CTE programs represent the diversity of jobs. And unfortunately, right now, Jersey Shore is not meeting that demand in healthcare.
So under this health-based program, science-based program, is there expectation that kids can go from this program right into a workforce, or they're going to have to go to further education?
They would have that option. So the health and medical assisting program is based around the PCT certification, the Patient Care Technician certification, which is an entry-level certification to get students working in senior care centers, adult care homes, as well as entry-level at Geisinger, Jersey Shore, or UPMC. They could continue once they get a job. Hopefully maybe their employer will pay for that next certification, or hopefully they'll pay for that training. They can continue to add education and certifications on top of what they already receive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You said that you consulted with a couple different groups about these decisions. Was there any concern about eliminating the other construction program from anybody else in that?
Sure.
And-
Yeah, so the construction trades program does have a group of adults, just like all the other programs, and they recommended to keep the program open.
Did they support their answer with any sound information or
No.
facts or?
They said they wanted to keep the program open. That was their recommendation. The local advisory committee overrode their recommendation and voted to substitute the program and converge with property maintenance. Great question, thank you.
With the health program?
Yeah.
With coming out of a CTE program, does that enhance their positioning going into a workforce? Or like, say if they go to their own schooling right after high school because they like that type of work, like because they have 2 years experience of classroom experience, I guess I should say, or if they do some kind of mentorship or any kind of thing like that. Like, my question is, does that give them a broader job pursuing kind of, do you know what I'm trying to say?
I do, and I think it depends on the student's ultimate goal.
Okay.
If we have a student coming through Jersey Shore whose goal is to be a gastrointestinal surgeon, I may not recommend the health and medical assisting CTE program for them, because it's specifically designed to be entry level, get students a job and training right out of high school when they don't have to pay for it. They would still have the opportunity to go into our diversified occupations program, if approved, and go intern with a surgeon. However, the other part of your question, if we have a student who desires an entry-level job, going through the health and medical assisting program would give them a certification that a student not going through the program wouldn't have access to.
Okay,
That was a really good question, thank you.
thank you.
So do you have to reapply for diversified occupation? Because we used to have that. So isn't that one of those ones that were put on the shelf maybe, or?
So if
there's
it
an update?
was, we would still have to get it reapproved.
Okay.
Because it's not just a course, it's actually a comprehensive
Right, I
CTE
understand.
program. So yeah, we would have to get reapproval for that by May 31st from the state, if it's approved by this board.
What kind of students do you see being pushed into the diversified I feel like that is going to be like a super high specialty, like one-track mind kind of kid, that they know that's where they're going, their heart's set on it. Like, is that what you're seeing for this
That.
program?
Yeah, that and the students who have a passion for an industry that maybe we don't have access to here at Jersey Shore. The three top interests of our students that we currently don't have programs for, besides health and medical assisting, is education, agriculture, and criminal justice. So students who have a passion and a desire to go work in those fields that are very ambitious, that are willing to, that work well independently, and that take direction and instruction well from their supervisors would do really well in the Diversified Occupations program. So I think it's that really ambitious student who sort of says, I'm gonna bypass that CTE program and do it on my own, or it would be that student who, you don't necessarily have a pathway for me, so in grades 9, 10, 11, I'm gonna explore, take all my core credits, and then grade 12, I'm gonna intern and apprentice as a state policeman.
So I just got one other question about.
I love it, thank you.
Health and science. You want to redirect the instructor space and so on. How much equipment or supplies would be involved with the new health science-based program?
So there is a decision that has to be made, and that's why I'm glad the curriculum question came up. The one curriculum package that's available for purchase does come with laboratory supplies. The other doesn't, where it's a curriculum where you purchase the supplies separately. I see in the first year of, the thing about starting the program new is the first year, you don't need 100% of your equipment and supply costs in year one. I only need enough equipment and supplies to teach the 9th and 10th grade courses and the first year of the program. Meaning I can spread the budget and the supply cost out over 2 years. That also gives me time to write grants for large equipment purchases. And like I said, we're really seeking out industry partnerships. Wendy Blanchette and Chelsea Reichert are the two professionals I work with at Geisinger Jersey Shore. Chelsea's like, I just replaced 12 beds. I said, well, we don't need 12 beds. But we're definitely going to be reaching out to care centers, looking out to surplus centers as well as Geisinger and UPMC to see how we can partner that there is a value to any resources they can provide in terms of supplies and equipment. In terms of cost, like actual cost, this year I put $13,000 in the health and medical assisting budget, which is approximately $4,000 less than what construction trades would have consumed this year or next year, if you will.
So do you feel that the space, excuse me, the space is adequate for what you want to do?
Not yet, but it's also not adequate for the building property maintenance program that's currently in there.
So what would you have to do to make it adequate?
Well, I think, again, we have to hire an instructor, and I really want to have that conversation with the instructor about what the classroom and the setup and the educational space actually looks like. But it's a very open and it's a very flexible space. There shouldn't be any major plumbing that's needed because it's right next to the locker rooms. So we're hoping that they can use those as changing spaces, if you will, into their uniforms as well as washing spaces. And they do have to do ambulatory procedures such as assisting the person to a toilet, assisting the person out and out of a bed. I think that in terms of safety, the health and medical assisting program fits better in that space than property maintenance does. We do have a concern there's not a non-slip floor in there. It's a very slippery floor. And that's a concern, I think, for building property maintenance or health and medical assisting that needs to be addressed.
Thanks.
Got it.
How difficult will it be to find an instructor, do you think?
I think that knowing how hard we had to search for a manufacturing instructor this summer, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. However, I do know that East Lycoming just doubled the size of their health and medical assisting program last year. They had 13 applicants for their position, and they were able to fill it immediately. I haven't posted a job search lately, and we're going to wait for approval to do that. I'm optimistic, though, just because I know how many healthcare professionals work in this area, how many healthcare institutions are in this area, and I'm always thinking, somebody's always thinking about a career change and doing something different. And I think that's the type of person with the right passion, knowledge, and experience that we'd love to have as an instructor in our classroom. That's a great question. Thanks for bringing that up.
You made a comment on the administrative assisting under business about lowly paid. What do you consider reasonable and highly paid?
So, the state minimum, that for career and technical education that the workforce development boards use is 32,000. And that's set by the Department of Labor and Industry. They consider it an HPO or a high priority, high paid occupation if it's $32,000 or more entry level, but then there also has to be a certain number of job openings in the area to get on that list.
Okay. I wouldn't want to try to live on that, though.
I know, it's a statistic. Are there any other questions? Thank you for those questions. And as more come in, I know Dr. Romer is going to record those questions and send them on to Mr. Armbruster and I, because we have folders of resources ready to provide for you. Just ask the questions and we'll get you what you need. Thank you very much for your time. I do have two more things I want to go over on a very celebratory note. We talk often about the impact of our CTE programs and the good work we're doing at the high school. We obviously have 11 CTE programs. If everything goes through as recommended and approved, we could have 12 CTE programs next year. Through our co-op agreement, our articulation agreements, and our co-op placements, we can give students up to 14 credits to 25 different colleges and technical schools in Pennsylvania. And that's all done through the SOAR program, which stands for Students Occupationally and Academically Ready. And we currently have 6 students out on co-op work experience. And that's something that I only think will go up if we're able to add diversified occupations in the future. And Mr. Armbruster talked about our PC dual enrollment courses. Last year, we had 153 students enrolled in 9 different courses, and Penn College is telling us that Jersey Shore students alone saved over $400,000 in tuition costs because we offer those courses to them in high school. So that's definitely something to celebrate the impact that our extended learning programs are having. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Armbruster, is it possible for me to ask you one last question before you depart? I was looking over your, for the Social Studies Department, for your AP seminar.
Yes.
In everyday vernacular, what exactly are you going to be teaching in that particular class?
So, right now, the proposal from the department would be that Mr. Green would be offering this course. An AP seminar is a portfolio-based opportunity for students that they can really dive into some deeper learning, some research skills, and it really sets the students up for when they get to college and some of that deeper, higher level learning. So there is, in order to offer the course, it's approved by the College Board. There's a whole bunch of resources that I can provide for you so you can see the specifics of the outline, but you have to be certified to offer the course, and you have to go through a training. So if this were to be approved, Mr. Green would then go and get the cert that he needs to offer this course. And he is currently one of our AP consultants for the nation. So he does that for AP history. This would be something that he would then go through the course himself to offer this. But it is largely a portfolio-based, a lot of independent learning opportunities, but it's geared to set students up for the next step. Right? Like these are typically going to be seniors that have already taken an AP course as a junior, and they're just looking to advance themselves and get prepared for post-secondary college.
So is the testing similar, or is it a portfolio type thing that they turn in?
So
Do they have a specific test, or is it more of a portfolio?
So
You're
the,
sa-
the recommendation that I saw through the College Board was a portfolio, but it's my understanding that this is currently under an audit process, and so once he goes through that training, they may offer some different options.
Okay.
So in essence, this is just more like an independent study for seniors that want to do research projects that they're interested in?
I don't know if I am doing the justice that this needs in this presentation to answer that question.
Okay.
But that was my understanding from the conversation with Mr. Green. I can definitely have a much thorough outline for you before you vote next week.
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So
And
do we want to clarify exactly what you're expecting us to vote on in 2 weeks?
Sure. What we are hoping to have for you at the next board meeting will be, we'll have the course catalog that has always been presented with the verbiage changes, you know, things where the name has changed or bringing back a course that was previously approved. And then we will also have an additional list of any new courses that it'll be itemized.
You're not giving us that Thursday before. You're
No.
giving us that earlier than that, right?
It's already ready to go. We felt like this is a lot, and if you just have the pathways course, like, it's a lot to digest. I feel like this conversation was already pretty lengthy, so, yeah, we're hoping to give you as much information so that you can make, the choice that you need. And, again, kudos to our teachers and our departments that, they've put a lot of time and effort into this, and I really do believe we're taking some great steps in, getting Jersey Shore back to where it needs to be. Thank you all.
Yeah, and for the CTE programs, there will be formal motions that, we will need motions to open and close certain programs. I didn't include those verbs in there tonight. Yeah, I didn't include those verbs in there tonight, but I'll work with Dr. Ulmer to make sure that the appropriate language is on the agenda.
Now, one of the things you said that you're looking at 12 programs for next year, but I only heard you taking away one. So where's the other one coming in? Or did I misinterpret what you
The
said?
third to last slide, and I went through this really quickly, if all the recommendations are approved as they're coming to you from the local advisory committee, this will be the list of the 12 programs.
Okay.
Adding diversified occupations, substituting.
Oh, you included that as, okay, I don't
Yes.
consider that as, okay, I
Yeah,
understand.
That would be the 12th one, thank you for asking.
And I just want to echo, been a lot of faculty meetings, principal conversations. I've been in a lot of these conversations as the faculty and the departments talk through some of these proposed changes. And I just want to recognize that out loud before these two sit down, that your staff and your department coordinators did a lot of work to dig through this and make logical recommendations to the board. And I need to say that out loud because there's been a lot of conversations that I've been in, and I know there's been a lot more that these two gentlemen have had and that the departments have had. So I need you to hear that you know, they're not just throwing this out. There's a lot behind this and rationale from your staff as to how we got to this point. Thank you both.
Thank
Guys.
you.
That's my report. All of it.
Next, we will move on to courtesy of the floor, where I do have one person signed up, Anne Marie Furman. If you could please state your name and where you're from, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to ask about is the spring coaching staff. So my first, I was an athlete, I believe, in sports. It's probably the only reason I made it through high school. So I am an advocate for that. But I want to understand, first of all, the stipends. How does our district compare to other districts with regards to stipends for coaches and assistants? I don't know if we have that answer tonight, but.
I do have that answer. That has been studied by this board in the past and is looked at, I won't say annually, but there was a study done a couple years ago, and Mrs. Thomas, you can jump in here if you like, because I know you were on that committee. But there was a study done and compared to other districts a couple years ago, and we have gone back occasionally when somebody will say, like, well, where are we with this particular position as someone new is hired? But there was a study done. Go ahead.
When the study was first done, we compared to 12 different schools in the area and looked at where our coaching staff was. Some were higher, some were lower, and some were consistently lower. And so we tried to, at that time, put together an average of those districts and pull our coaches up to that. But like I said, some cases, some of them were higher. And then, was it 2 years ago? We did the same thing. We did the same thing again.
Okay. And then another part of that question is is there an evaluation process for coaches? Okay, so there is, and so we're just not continuing, just because there's a win behind the season? We're
There
not
is
just
an
promoting-
extensive evaluation process that the board gets reports on from the athletic director at the end of every season.
Okay, so is it like an evaluation from just the athletic director, or is there parents' input?
There are student
Students.
athlete input and athletic director input.
Okay, all right, that's all I have.
Well, students are surveyed,
Students
so
are, yeah.
there is somewhat of an input from students, but it's not controlling.
Okay, all right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Furman. Moving on to personnel items. Recommending to approve items A through K. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or concerns?
I would just like to thank Mrs. Marriott for her 30 years of service. It's greatly appreciated.
Agreed. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. Motion passes. Moving on to curriculum and instruction, items to approve. Letter A. Can I have a motion, please? Hearing none, the motion fails. We will move on to buildings and grounds.
Letter A is on the agenda in terms of an update. The Buildings and Grounds Committee did meet. I did send notes from that meeting to the full board. And also as a reminder that there is a Buildings and Grounds works session scheduled for next Monday at 6 o'clock for the entire board. I also want to call your attention to the documents I passed out to the board tonight in preparation for next week's meeting, so that you had time to look through those. And the Buildings and Grounds Committee is going to be going on a tour of those 4 priority items with Mr. Wall later this week prior to your meeting on Monday.
Public meeting.
Public meeting on Monday, yes. Did I not say it? If I didn't say it, public meeting on Monday, 6 o'clock, right here. That's all.
There's nothing under finance. Moving on to miscellaneous. Items to approve, A through F. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Moving on to old business. There is nothing actually there. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss under old business tonight? Okay. We will move on to courtesy of the floor. If you would like to address the board, please come forward, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Pryor, Mifflin Township. Good evening, board. I'd just like to know You know I'm concerned about the number of credits and how it affects things in the district. But how does the required 27 credits to graduate affect the graduation rate? In other words, also, what is our graduation rate compared to other districts? Apparently, you know, the more credits you have to graduate means the more work you got to do. And a lot of our students have part-time jobs after school and some even before school starts. So I was just curious if you ever done any kind of a study on something like that? Because when I saw the rating up on the screen there at the beginning of the presentation,
That is attached to the agenda, and the graduation rate is on that slide.
okay, so I can get on the internet
Yep.
and look at that?
Yep, you can. I can give you my copy if you'd like it.
No, that's okay. Okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
Anne Marie Furman, Watson Township. I just, so listening to the presentation that the two gentlemen just made earlier, I'm wondering where we are financially going to come up with any additional monies within the district. With the contract that we just passed for the teachers and the deficit that we have to cover, the gap that we have to cover, defined with passing that contract, I'd really like to know how we're going to justify in making any changes that's going to make any additional costs for this district without putting the burden on us taxpayers. So I'd like to really understand that we have a significant gap with the current contract that we're in for the next 5 years. So we all need to keep that in mind when we're voting on these things that are coming up here in the next few weeks. That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay. We will adjourn the meeting.